Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Kimberly Seipert, your worship leader for this morning's service, and this is Common Ground, our celebration of worship for people of many paths who gather to share in the responsible search for meaning and truth. This is a warm and welcome community with open hearts, and kind hearts and open minds are welcome, regardless of age, ability, race, gender identity, or sexual orientation. We hope that all who join us today find this a safe place to worship. Now we will take the service lights down for a moment so you'll have the gallery view again to say hi to everybody. Please stay muted, but smile and wave at each other for our virtual greeting. And now sit back and enjoy our opening song, Morning Has Broken. Although you will remain muted during the song, we encourage you to sing along and enjoy it to its fullest. Morning has broken. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can remember what we did for the sound. Let me see if that. I hope you're able to hear it a little better after I shared my computer audio. In you, we light a flaming chalice in worship to create a reverent space for reflection, prayer, meditation, and singing. Laura Thompson, a UU minister in Minnesota, wrote these chalice lighting words with these times of COVID quarantining in mind. Say the words along with me. Across the distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is fuel that warms me and helps to keep my own light burning. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright. I invite you to join me in a renewal of our sacred promises. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. Now, as we all remain muted, I hope you will stand, stretch, and sing along with our worship song, Holy Now by Peter Meyer. This song has been called an entire encompassing philosophy in one moving song.
When I was a boy each week, on Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest. And he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread. And everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad. Miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at home. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. But now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy.
song is always a pleasure. Today's call to worship is by Joel Miller. Let our lives be a prayer that waters dry souls, mends broken hearts, refuses to be terrorized, seeks this world's beauty, and carries us through its storms. Today's speakers are Sandy Moore, Franklin Drigo, and Tami Smith. Each of our speakers participated in last year's Adult Soul Matters small groups, and today they will talk with us about their experiences. I'll introduce you to our first speaker. Sandy Moore has been a member of Pathways for over 10 years. She has served on our board of trustees and has facilitated several Pathways groups: Wellspring, On My Path, and Soul Matters. Sandy is a current member of Pathways Service Design Team. You are watching an example of her work. She enjoys facilitating contemplative spiritual practice retreats with other spiritual directors who were in her class at Heart Paths. Her husband Jim and daughter Molly are also members of Pathways. Sandy's pandemic hobbies include painting, writing, meditating, scanning photographs, sewing masks, going keto, and delivering figs. And now I'd like to welcome Sandy to our pulpit.
Thank you, Kimberly. So in September, Pathways will start the second year of our subscription to Soul Matters, curricula for all ages. Soul Matters was first developed in 2006 by the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. It began as an effort to share materials among colleagues and has since grown into a means to connect congregations from around the country and the world. Today, around 20% of all UU churches in the US and Canada and a few more in other parts of the world are participating in this web of interdependence. I first heard about Soul Matters from Rob Moore of Horizons UU Church in Carrollton. He arrived for a planning meeting at Pathways and he was just bubbling with enthusiasm. He said he was still thinking about the small group discussion he had been in a few days before. So I started asking him questions, and then I got excited about the program. And now Pathways is part of the growing network of Soul Matters congregations. Next slide. Soul Matters materials are built around monthly themes. These themes focus on spiritual values that our UU faith has historically honored. So these were the themes from last year, and you'll notice that Soul Matters is a 10-month program, September through June. Soul Matters, small groups are not a standalone program. They're designed as a companion program to a congregation's worship and religious education ministries. So in the small groups, we have an opportunity to explore the monthly worship themes in more depth. We also receive a monthly worship packet along the same theme that includes resources for all aspects of our Common Ground services, from opening words and meditations to music and stories for all ages. And the Soul Matters religious education curriculum enables parents, children, and the whole church to go on the same spiritual journey each month with age-appropriate activities for the children and youth. So now I'd like to give just a quick overview of one of the monthly small group packets. February happened to be the last month that we were able to meet in person in our small groups. Since then, we've been meeting via Zoom. So in February, our theme was resilience. I was a small group facilitator last year, so I would receive these monthly packets and send them out by email to everyone who was in one of our small groups. We had 2 Soul Matters small groups last year because we try to keep each group to no more than about 6 or 7 people in a group. The monthly packet includes, on the next slide, suggested spiritual exercises, giving us an opportunity to more fully experience the theme. Most packets contain several suggested exercises, but we're asked to only do one. You look over the whole packet and pick the one that calls to you. This one began with a quote from Barbara Kingsolver, in which she talked about coming back from seasons of despair in her life by finding beautiful things in her environment. And that practice would bring her, help her reteach herself the feeling of joy. And the suggested practice was to try that and then reflect on whether or not that seemed to help spark joy inside you, and share that experience with the group at the group meeting. On the next slide, here's another example from that same packet. This points out that sometimes music is just the thing to spark resilience in us. And in order to help us remember times that certain songs helped us, they give Spotify and YouTube playlists. I am proud to say that I learned Spotify this year due to my involvement in Soul Matters, and I still, it's now my favorite way to cue up music. The suggestion on this activity was to pick a song that triggers a memory in you of a time that song helped you through a hard time, and bring that song, play it for your group, and tell the story. So, and on the next slide, the packet also contains a list of questions, about 20 questions, but the assignment is to glance over all the questions and just pick one of them. Pick one of them to reflect about and share in the group about your thoughts about it. The question I'm most often asked about Soul Matters is there a lot of homework? And I would have to say no, certainly not as much as in the Wellspring program. The commitment is just to choose one spiritual exercise from the packet and one of the questions, and then meet with your small group once a month to share your experiences in a circle of trust. So we have two of the folks who participated last year who are going to share their personal experiences with us this morning, and I'll introduce Tami first. Tami joined Pathways 10 years ago at the Nolan location in South Lake while searching for an open-minded church in which to raise her daughter, Sierra. Having found her spiritual home at Pathways, she has steadfastly followed our church to the temporary location at the Reserve in Euless, and then to our current location on Harwood, and to our current location this morning on Zoom. Over the years, Tami has volunteered as a children's RE instructor at Nolan. She ran the children's RE program at the Reserve, and she continues to assist with children's RE at our current location. Throughout the year, she also helps out as worship leader. Tami regularly enjoys spirited discussions with harried reasoners and TED Talks. She's participated in Stephen Braun's book studies, including reading the Bible again for the first time, Joseph Campbell's Power of Myth, and the current readings of both Zen and Sufi tales. She is blessed and grateful to have participated in the Wellspring program twice at Pathways, and she attributes the program for helping her better define her own individual spiritual path, as well as learning about the journeys of her fellow Pathways participants. Tami was an enthusiastic participant in the first year of our involvement in the Soul Matters program, and Tami will talk to us about her experience. She's a proud mom of Sierra, a student at Grapevine High School, and fur mom to crazy Australian Shepherd Ginger and affectionate cat Snitch. Tami is an Air Force veteran, having flown both strategic and tactical aircraft, and is currently a commercial airline pilot. She loves any physical activity in nature, preferably in the mountains, including running, hiking, biking, kayaking, skiing, and climbing. She enjoys traveling, books, dabbling in art, and recently sewing. Now, Tami, I'll turn our virtual podium over to you.
Thank you, Sandy, and to all of you for having me here today. I'm always grateful to share my UU experiences with you, my friends and chosen church community. Here at Pathways, I've always felt lucky and blessed to have found a spiritual home with other people for whom learning is also a lifelong pursuit. In many creedal faith communities, people are locked into a professed set of beliefs. But here at Pathways, we're given the gift to question and search. Just last week at Harry Griesner's, Jenny Berry led us in a discussion about our fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And for me, participating in adult RE opportunities at Pathways like Soul Matters is a starting point for that free and responsible search. I also look at our adult RE programs as a form of self-care in the midst of the crazy, hectic lives that our modern world creates. Participating in Soul Matters was a way for me to connect with other Pathway members and spend time nurturing my mind and spirit. As Sandy described, Soul Matters monthly themes are also used in our Common Ground services. So we can all gain personal growth that way. However, the Soul Matters program's varied resources allowed me to more deeply explore each month's theme. The monthly packets gave me step-by-step guidance to search inside myself, my relationships, my history, and the world around me. I know that on my own, I wouldn't have committed to this deep work. I needed a map to get me started, and Soul Matters laid out a map and a starting point for me. As Sandy said, I previously participated in Wellspring and would also highly recommend that program as a tool for self-exploration and spiritual growth. However, Wellspring is a very in-depth and time-intensive program, and I wasn't able to make that commitment this past year. Because Soul Matters is presented in a more time-manageable format, I was still able to gain needed introspection while keeping my life in better balance. Some months I could only complete the minimum required exercises and questions, while other months, particularly during the early months of the pandemic, I was able to take advantage of all of the options available, listening to Spotify music, reading poetry or books, listening to podcasts, watching video clips, or even watching the recommended movies. The themes that had the greatest impact on me from this year's program were compassion and belonging. The events of these past few years, and particularly the past few months, have been dark times for myself and our country, especially for people of compassion. We've seen the multiple injustices, immigrant families torn apart, DACA recipients denied citizenship, the ravages of income inequality, police brutality, and our legal system injustices toward people of color, environmental destruction caused by climate change, disregard for science and public health experts resulting in over 150,000 deaths. And in these staggering numbers, we also saw the tragedy of healthcare inequality. In the midst of all this suffering, compassion was one of the Soul Matters themes. Oddly, it was not one of the exercises that month, but instead a few sentences on the opening page of that month's packet that deeply affected me. It said that compassion is not just a matter of niceness and thoughtful feelings. It's a deeper type of feeling that drives us to action. Compassion calls us to change things. When we feel real compassion, we don't just understand another's pain, we want it to stop. And then we do what's needed to make it stop. Maybe the true test of compassion is justice. Those were the words on that first sheet in the packet, and they struck me to my core and reminded me of the words of the late John Lewis. At the time, he was still alive. He's a civil rights icon, the moral compass of Congress, and an unfailing advocate for nonviolent resistance. He also encouraged us to action. This man of compassion was also concerned about these moral injustices. Some of his final words to us were, "Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America." In another of his speeches, reflecting his deep feelings of compassion and justice, he said, "You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person or force, dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness, hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won." I hope his words are true. As you use our first two principles, also call us to have compassion and take action too. Our first principle says, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And our second principle states, we believe in justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations. And so for me, the theme of compassion that month was a personal call to take action for justice. Another Soul Matters theme that deeply affected me was the theme of belonging. What does it mean to be a people of belonging? Brené Brown's TED Talk on finding our way to true belonging and her book, Braving the Wilderness, The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone, were supplemental resources to that month's theme. But her words spoke to me. In searching for belonging, it's tempting to compromise our true self to fit in. Many of us who have felt different, and because of that difference, have felt excluded, struggle with the concept of belonging. Accepting and liking who I am and letting others accept me for who I am is an important step to true belonging. And although I'd seen this TED Talk before, it was in the context of Soul Matters that I was given the space to acknowledge how much those words applied to me. Speaking of belonging, besides learning and growing through the monthly themes, one of the greatest gifts I've received from both Wellspring and Soul Matters has been becoming part of a circle of trust. I'd not heard that term until participating in these programs. In the circle of trust, we make a covenant with each other and practice active and deep listening with no crosstalk or fixing. Being with each other in this way fosters greater understanding and connection. True listening is a skill that is often absent in our current culture, and although I'm far from perfecting that skill, both Wellspring and Soul Matters help me to learn and practice this in each session. I am deeply grateful to my fellow participants in Soul Matters for their vulnerability and honesty as we explored these monthly themes. In taking this journey together, all of us learned much about ourselves and about each other. I'm grateful to Soul Matters, to Sandy, and for the program to help me grow in my personal knowledge and spirituality, and for deepening my connection to everyone in the group. And now, let me introduce Franklin. Franklin was born on the small island nation of Dominica. I was waiting for his slide. He was born in the small island nation of Dominica in the West Indies. At the age of 9, his family moved to the United States with the help of a small evangelical church in Tampa, Florida. He lived in Tampa from 1982 until he moved to Texas in 1995 to attend Christ for the Nation Institute and start a life of his own. He worked in accounting for Michael Stores for 20 years. He has had a lifelong interest and curiosity in psychology, philosophy, and the care of human body in connection to spirituality. Music is his go-to for self-expression. He's currently raising 2 daughters, aged 10 and 13, together with his best friend and former wife, Angela. He found his way to Pathways about 2 years ago and knew immediately this was his place of belonging. He's taken part in Wellspring, Soul Matters, On My Path, and the Wednesday meditation group, as well as attending the spiritual practice retreats being offered through U Bar U by Rob Moore and our own Sandy Moore. Did you know registration for the August 18th e-session is available now on the U Bar U website? And these sessions are being offered for free. And now it's Franklin's turn to speak this morning.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with each of you today. In the short 2 years that I've been at Pathways, our community has become a vital part of my life and well-being. What brought me here was a longing for community that was missing from my life after 7 years of not having a place where I could find centeredness and grow in spirituality. Angela and I were still married at the time when I found it impossible to continue to attend the churches that I used to go to. As I grew up in an evangelical church growing up in my life in Tampa, Florida. I learned Christianity from the viewpoint of being a missionary and going out into the world and bringing people to God and saving them. Those were things that were instilled in me as a child growing up, and I followed them all the way through my life. And I struggled with it because there was something within me that wanted more than what I was receiving. I didn't understand it at the time. After I moved here to Texas to start a life that I didn't know what it would turn out to be, I struggled to find my own self and my own way. I learned to just live my life according to what pleased other people or what made it safe for me to go about in the world. I struggled with my own self-identity and my own self-worth because of a lot of the ways that I learned Christianity just within myself. It wasn't something that was taught to me, but the way that I received it and the message that was given to me, it just had that effect on me. So I kind of grew up not knowing who I really am, other than the fact that I need love and I want to love. So after going through school and moving out on my own and finding work just to make my life work and live how I wanted to live, I found myself in an empty space. I tried to return to my relationship with God, which was something that was difficult for me because my experiences in life didn't really match up to the information that I received when I was growing up. That struggle made it harder for me to just go through my life and live it and be in joy and the peace that I heard about, but I didn't experience within my own self. After I met Angela, we had Addison, and then we got married. And it was during that time when Angela was pregnant with Addison that I realized for the first time what it was like for God to love me. Because one day I realized how much I loved this little child that wasn't even born yet. And I was so filled with this amazing love for her, and she hadn't done anything for me. I hadn't done anything for her. And yet this deep love resided, and within me, I felt God say to me, "This is the way that I love you." And that was the first time in my life that I feel like I truly accepted the love of God for me, just as I am, without any work to prove it or earn it in any way. Because up until that point, my relationship with God was based on my performance, how well I behaved, how well I followed the rules, how little sin I committed. But I know that that's not the way that it was with God. So I worked through those issues. And that time of having a child in a way that I wouldn't have ever expected to have a child changed me forever. But I was still attending what I call normal church. And it fed me for a little while. It led me down a path, but it didn't fulfill me. It didn't bring me the peace and the joy that I was looking for. And I had to walk away from it because there were things that I was learning and being told that didn't match up to the actual practice and what I was seeing. And those were difficult times for me in life because I didn't really know how to ground myself. My whole identity and my whole worth was centered around my relationship with God. And now I had no place to put that relationship, no grounding for me to stand on. And that was the biggest part of my life. So I stayed out of church and out of community for so long. After we got married and had my second daughter, Myra, I felt this deep desire and this longing to be in community, but I still couldn't go back to church anymore because it just wasn't something that I needed to add to my life because it only caused me more harm than good. So I stayed on my own for so long, and I went through a process of getting divorced, which was not something that I ever thought that I would ever have to go through. When I made that commitment to be married, I thought it would be forever. I thought it would be the rest of my life and I would live in joy and peace and celebration with this person and the family I was creating. But then life showed me something different, that it wasn't what I was looking for. I couldn't find it there in that space, and I had to let it go. And it was the hardest thing for me to go through on my own. I lost the ground of what I stood on because at the same time I was going through that divorce, I also lost the idea of God that I had. God was no longer some man in the clouds or in the sky or someone waiting for me after I die. It was something I needed right here in this moment. That time in my life was very dark and very depressing. I felt all alone, but at the same time, I also felt the presence of God in the form of the Spirit with me throughout this whole process. And I actually felt like it was actually God leading me on this path of losing God, which was just kind of it was a difficult thing for me to process, but in the midst of it, what I was finding was myself. And I came through that process of being divorced, finding a sense of identity and self-worth that was just rooted in me and nothing else and no one else. And I had to learn what it was like to be me in this world, just as I am, with all my flaws, but also all the things about me that made me wonderful, that made me a great friend and a great father, and someone to be around and someone to like and to be cared for and to care about. I still did not have community though, so there was something that was missing. I felt this great desire to be connected to a community, and I didn't know where to go. I couldn't go back to where I was. And one day, it was the day of my oldest daughter, Addison's birthday, and I came, this was 2 years ago. We went out to eat in the shopping center where Pathways is located. And I came out of the building and I looked over and I saw this sign and it said, Pathways, Unitarian Universalist. I was like, what is that? I did not know what it was. I never heard of Unitarian Universalist before. So I went through and I looked it up online and I saw that, oh, wow, this is something different than I've ever noticed before, I've even had the understanding of. And I saw that they had a small group, which is something that I was longing for. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go. And 3 or 4 weeks went by before I actually took the action to go. But the day that I went, the small group was on my path and they started at 11:30. I got there a little bit after 11:30 and the group had already started their 2-minute of meditation. And I walked in and Lily Beth led me into the group, and the group opened up and let me in. And from that moment on, I've been there. I feel like I found my place of belonging. And I didn't know that that's what I was really looking for all my life, was a place of belonging. Leaving the island I grew up in for my childhood, which when I look at it now I considered the most free and blessed time of my life, where it was just joy. It was just pleasure. It was difficult work. It wasn't something like life here in America to me is very easy in the fact of the physical structure of it, the comfort of it. I didn't have all that on the island, but it didn't matter to me. I had my friends and all this freedom that I could go and live and be and enjoy what was there. And so those were the days of my life that seemed so full of pleasure and joy, what I expect or what I thought life would be like. Coming here was difficult for me, trying to adjust to a new way of living. My accent was heavy, so people couldn't understand what I had to say. I had to learn to change my voice so that I could be heard and understood. And I didn't understand all of this while I was going through the process, but one of the reasons why Pathways is so special to me is because at Pathways, I've really learned what it is to be me and how it is to embrace me just as I am, how to belong. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I belong, and it's just the beginning. One of the ways I didn't belong, I didn't know that I needed to understand how I belong, was in the fact that I'm a Black person in America. I'm a Black man. Where I come from, we don't identify people by their color of their skin. You may be identified from where you're from, what country you're from. So that was something that I had to learn what it was. I didn't know racism. I had to learn that growing up, and I didn't really learn it. I realized that what I learned was a white way of seeing life and seeing the world. But not only that, but also through the lens of this evangelical Christianity, which now I come to realize is, it may be fine for other people, but for me, it was very harmful because I never learned how to just truly love myself and be accepted as I am. But being here at Pathways has opened a whole new door for me. And now I can look at myself in the mirror and I can see the beauty of who I am externally and internally. So Pathways has been a community that I've needed all my life that I never had here in America. And it's changed me forever, and it continues to change me. So now when I think of Pathways, I think of my community. This is where I belong, and not just a place where I can come to fit in, but a place where I can come and be who I am, exactly as I am, with all my failings, all my weaknesses, and interact with people and get to know others, and to share myself with someone else and have them accept me, and to listen to someone else and get a whole new view of life that I never knew existed. I don't really follow Christianity the way that I was taught to anymore. And that is a difficulty for me because my family still follows that path and I'm not connected to it anymore. And I longed for family, but what I found is Pathways as being my family. And one of the things that I enjoy the most about Pathways are the groups that we have, the opportunity for me to learn and to grow my spirituality. That is something that has been implanted in me that will never leave me. It'll never go away. But Pathways has finally given me a path where I can follow it and I can walk it and find meaning and purpose in it. So being on my path and learning how to listen, not to just those around me, but listen to my own voice and to hear what I have to say from within and to follow that has been such a joy. And I've been able to take that and apply that to every area of my life, and most importantly with my children, with my personal family. But for me now, Pathways is the family that I have where I belong and I connect. I'm involved in so many things. And this past year, I decided to take Wellsprings and Soul Matters all at the same time, not really knowing all that it entailed. Wellspring was a lot. It met every 2 weeks, and it was a lot for me to keep up with. And Soul Matters was once a month. But both of those groups helped me grow in so many ways. I saw how each week and actually each day I went through struggles, and the material that I was being pushed into or led on through those two groups spoke to me and spoke directly to the situations that I was facing, and it helped me find insight and guidance, and it helped me walk a path that was fulfilling and life-giving. And especially Soul Matters. Soul Matters is something that's the effect of it on my life was different. Every week every month I would say, I wasn't able to really dive into all the material because we'd get a topic. One of the topics that really stood out to me at first was the topic of attention. And it was about how, just to walk across a field and see a purple flower and just ignore it. Like it's almost like that's not how life was designed. That flower is telling me pay attention more. And when I paid attention, I saw myself. I'm not only seeing the flower, I saw myself, but it applied to me in the way of people. So one of the exercises that comes along with the package, which I really like, because you get a topic and then you get all these activities that you get to choose from. So there was a freedom in that, which I really enjoy. I didn't just have to think about it in one way. So the activity was there were several activities and I didn't get a chance to do them. And it was like the night or 2 days before the meeting we were going to meet. And I was like, oh, I got to do one. So one of them was just sit outside somewhere and listen and count the numbers. And I started doing that. And I sat on my back porch and I listened to the sound. And I heard the dogs barking, the cricket. I heard the raindrop falling, and everything just connected me. The more I listened, the more I did the practice, the more I was able to connect to myself. And I found at the end of it, what I realized was that, man, I'm connected to all of this, the whole universe, you know, just nature itself. I am not separate from it. And again, that communicated to me how much I belong, not just in this moment, not just as pathways, not just in my family, but in the whole universe. And that was so important to me, because the struggles that I have in life and I've had in my life have always made me feel like I didn't belong and I didn't connect to this world even. But in that just simple activity, I found how much I belonged. And that was just an example of how just going through the material, even in the last moment, it made such a difference. But beyond that, it's even if I didn't have a lot of time to do the activity, when we get together, we share from our heart. We share in a space where we have a covenant with each other, where we know that what we say here belongs here and it stays here with each other. And it formed such a bond within me that I felt the freedom to be able to just speak from my heart. And those are the moments that really transformed me. Learning to listen to someone else share from their heart what they were going through. It opened up my heart so that I can feel like I belong, and I shared. So I was able to share in ways that I didn't know, and just being able to be vulnerable with a group of people that I didn't know yet, and then get to know in such a way that the infilling that it gave me just transformed me in so many ways. And there were times when I would have a week where I was depressed or life was just not working and everything. But then when we got together, it like saved me, you know, and so it transformed. I love the way that all these things that I learned before through Christianity in a way that was harmful to me, being here and being involved in these groups have made it to where I didn't have to ignore those things or block them out, but it transformed them and it redefined them for me and allowed me to find new life in them. And here I am here today speaking to you in this way that I wouldn't have been able to do before, because I would have been too nervous about how you're going to judge me because of what I'm saying and how I'm saying, and make sure I don't say anything that's going to cause me to be rejected or pushed out. But I don't worry about that anymore. I found this freedom that I wouldn't have been able to find without being here at Pathways, without interacting in the groups that I've been involved with. And the fact that I can come here and just be me and get involved as much as I want or as little as I want. But there's nothing in me that wants to be involved as little as I want. There's no, that is gone from me because of the experience that I've had with each and every person that I've interacted with and gotten to know. I'm one of the people who suffered from this COVID thing. My position at work was eliminated over a month ago. And that would have been something that would have been like the most devastating thing for me in life, to not have a way of providing, not knowing that. But there's this peace and this rest that I've been able to have. And the spirituality that I've received from my time here with Pathways, in this moment, it allowed me to find freedom and the voice that I can hear from within telling me to just go within and find myself, you know, and listen. And now I can live out of my true self in the way that I truly am. And it's just it's a wonder to me. It's an amazement. I enjoy it. I have so much joy and so much peace in my life in all those struggles. It's not that I don't struggle, because I have my dark days, but I know I have a group and I have a community. And more than that, I have all these resources that I can pour myself into so that I can find the life that I need, the life that already existed in me, that existed in me way before I found Pathways. But now Pathways has opened up the space and I can be that and I can be myself. So if anything that I have to say to you today is to thank you. Thank you for being here, for being part of Pathways and opening the space to me and allowing me to be here by each of you being who you are. And I love that. I love that I get to see other people being who they are, and it encourages me to be who I am. So when Soul Matters starts again, I will be there again. And I hope to see and interact with many more of you and get to know you in such a way that I've gotten a chance to grow and know the other people in our group. So that's my time. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you.
All right. Well, thank you both. Before we move on to this slide, I just wanted to say that the groups sort of moved seamlessly into Zoom. Our meetings were by Zoom since February, and it just works beautifully. It's become what I feel is my major connection to Pathways, the circle of trust, the Soul Matters circle of trust, where I'm keeping in touch with real deep sharing with the other members in Soul Matters. And no way of knowing how much longer we'll be meeting by Zoom, but when the new year starts in September, there'll definitely be Zoom meetings. All right, now we'll go to the PowerPoint, and the new year is about to start. It'll start in September with the theme of renewal. So all the scheduling, last time we had a Sunday group and a Thursday evening group, but it all depends on who shows up. And at our first meeting, we start talking about the schedule that would work for everybody, and divide up into more than one group if we have that many people. So on the next slide, here's a preview. Here's one of the spiritual exercises in the September packet. And the authors of Soul Matters are now dedicating one spiritual exercise every month to a different aspect of what they're calling decentering whiteness efforts in response to the movement and protest for Black Lives Matter. So in this particular exercise, they provided a number of articles, podcasts, and videos. The spiritual exercise is to pick some of these or others that you find to revisit, correct, enrich, and renew your understanding of our country's history. It goes along with the theme of renewal. And another option in September is a poem by Laura Mancuso listing all the things she does for self-care and self-renewal. And the spiritual exercise is to pick 2 from her list that call to you, that capture commitments to yourself that you'd like to renew. So there's always a wide variety of choices. So the Soul Matters groups will be forming soon. If you're interested in possibly joining this rewarding small group activity, let me know, and I'll need an email or a text, or stay tuned after the service today during our conversation time. I'll be available then to answer any questions you may have. And while I'm scheduling, go back just a minute, back one slide. Look at the bottom. We'll share these times of question and answer sessions by Zoom coming up August 16th and August 20th to be available to answer further questions and start planning the scheduling for next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, all of you. We hope that each of you on your individual path through the joys and questions of life found some common ground with your fellow travelers who are virtually gathering today. We extinguish our virtual flame today with words from Amy Zucker Morgenstern. Her message, which she wrote for these pandemic times, is titled, "We Are One." Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. from each of us in our supposed solitude. The signals buzz and hum, sparkling through space one to another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one. And from every window, our light shines. Oops, sorry. Announcements and Zoom links for all Pathways events can be found in the weekly newsletter in your email inbox and also on the Pathways website, pathwaysuu.org. You'll find in your newsletter this week exciting announcements about Stephen Braun's next book study starting in September, as well as the return of Mystic Path starting again on September 10th. Also in the newsletter and on the website are instructions for our options for maintaining our pledges and donations. On the service, we hope you'll hang around for a few minutes of socializing before adult classes begin at 11:30. Milestones is a time of reflection on the joys and concerns of our congregation and their families. Lori Stockton Moreno, daughter of Jean and Marge Stockton, has accepted the position of Director of the Montessori Teacher Education Program at Trine University in Angola, Indiana. Lori will work remotely during the fall semester and join her colleagues in Indiana in January. And now let's remain muted, but join in spirit in our closing song, one of Pathway's favorites, Blue Boat Home.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. Thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat
Well, the nice thing about not singing in the choir, I finally get to see the beautiful pictures of that song, usually facing away from them. Our closing words today are by Maureen Killeran. This is the message of our faith, to act with passion in the face of injustice, to love with courage in the midst of life's pain. This is the meaning of our chalice flame. May it empower our hearts until we are together again. Blessed be. Go in peace. Thank you to our small group of dedicated volunteers who made our Sunday Common Ground services possible. Okay, now's the time you've been waiting for. Conversationalists, unmute your mics and let the discussions begin.
Thank you, everybody. That was a wonderful service.
It's very good.
Yes, I really enjoyed it.
All of you. Thank you.
It was a great service. Thank you very much to all of y'all. It was wonderful.
Well, I know I personally just feel so lucky to be part of this community with all of you.
If that doesn't get people to sign up for Soul Matters, I don't know what will. So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yes, thanks to all the speakers. That was inspirational, and I do plan to sign up. Thank you so much.
So the only negative thing I can think about it is, you know, Franklin was not in my group, and I don't know anything about his story or his journey, and I just learned it today. So that's the downside, is there are small groups and you can't be with everybody. Thank you, Franklin, for sharing today.
Thank you for sharing.
Tami, go ahead.
Ruby. I missed the beginning, so if there was anyone else who told their stories, I missed that. I'm sorry. Franklin was just marvelous, and I'm so glad I was able to hear him. I learned a lot, and it sounded so much like my journey to Pathways as well. Yeah. It was beautiful service. Thank you all.
Thank you, Franklin. It was good to meet you after talking to you so much.
Oh, it's nice to meet you too.
It's good to see our long distance friends too.
I know. That's one good thing about Zoom, huh? Is we can still keep those connections.
We can see
Thank
people.
you, everybody.
Yes.
It was a beautiful service, and Tami and Franklin both. That was beautiful. I can tell you spent a lot of time preparing for that. And Franklin, of course, I was in Soul Matters with Franklin, and unfortunately I wasn't in there with Tami. So anyway, but it is true. You miss out if you can't be with everybody. But I agree with both of y'all. I learned a lot from Soul Matters. And thank you. Thank you for everybody. It was a beautiful service.
And thank you, Sandy, for bringing Soul Matters to Pathways and for your leadership.
Yes, thank you.
It was a networking thing. My work with Rob Moore just led to a offhand comment he made, and that's the first I had ever heard of Soul Matters. So it was all networking.
And another public service announcement about Sandy and Rob Moore's You Bar You seminar that you could sign up for online.
Yes, I agree with Tami on that. If you haven't gone to one of the spiritual retreats, that you're missing out. The practices are so good. Like as Tami shared in her story about how that has transformed her and given her this path to like just explore and experience so much. I mean, I can testify to that. It's the same thing for me, that having those experiences and the practices has helped me process through all the things. I love what you talked about, how we're going through this difficult time, but yet the material the way that you were able to connect to it, that whole compassion and belonging, I love the way that you shared about that. I could relate to that so much. Thank you.
Franklin, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
Somewhere I missed what time the meeting, the 15th is.
Okay, I'll send you the information. It's going to be at 2:30.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy, I would just like to comment on your comment that it all started with an offhand remark. I would say everything in life worth knowing begins that way.
Absolutely.
If anybody has any questions about the book series, it's going to start in September, the first Sunday in September. I did a couple of book studies last year, and then we did a summer study. And so I've changed the name to Embracing Spirituality for the series, and we've got curricula set up for the whole year. It's in the newsletter, and happy to answer any questions now. We're also reviving Mystic Path. Sandy and I collaborated on that. And we'll do The Only Dance There Is by Ram Dass as the first book for a couple of months, and then we'll have all new stuff for Mystic Path. So it's a volunteer-led group. So if you have any questions about either for me now, otherwise I'm going to jump off and go get ready for the next thing, which is 11:30 board meeting.
Good point.
All right, we have more time for both before they start, so I'll be available, and let me or Sandy know for Mystic Path. It'll be announced in the newsletter second Thursday, and the other group is at 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon, starting the first Sunday in September. See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Steve.
And I didn't get it together to get a slide in the presentation today, but Charlotte and Franklin were talking about the next Inquirers class. If you know anybody who wants to join the church, we're doing an Inquirers class next Saturday, the 15th. And they can call Franklin about it. Or me. He probably answers faster.
Kimberly, I think I've got a person. I'll get you the information either by text or email as soon as I make one more contact with her.
Okay, that sounds great. So we have 2 people coming to the class so far. So I think it'll be good. Yeah, and you know what, I'm just going to say it here where everyone can hear. If any of you are wanting to talk to me or trying to get a hold of me, COVID is really tough for me, and my work is affected by it, and so I'm having a little harder time reacting as quickly as I would. So text me, you know, and I will respond, and just no, I'm struggling a little bit right now, as I know a lot of us are, but I'll confess and say it out loud. I am. That's all.
I am too. No, but you're front line. You're seeing. I can only imagine what you're seeing. So my heart goes out to you, because I've been struggling too, and I'm not doing what you're doing. So God bless you.
No, I don't. So I'm not front line like the nurses and doctors in the hospital. To me, so I don't want you to think that. COVID is affecting my workplace. And occasionally we have someone that we decide in the clinic. The health department as a whole isn't doing a lot of testing, except occasionally groups will go out to a nursing home, for example. And then occasionally in my clinic in TB didn't stop because of COVID. So we still have to provide TB care, but everything is affected by how we do it is by COVID. And so part of that's difficult. And then just the way it's affected my life, my personal life too. The isolation is hard. So, so I don't want y'all to, just don't think I'm like those nurses in the hospital. But thank you.
You're still awesome.
You're still awesome, and you do a wonderful job. So hats off to you. You're still one of my sheroes. So
So one of my sheroes.
Oh no, big clay feet. Big clay feet here.
I got a little too overwhelmed with the fields, so I'm sitting here ugly crying. That's why I went off camera.
You got too overwhelmed.
Oh,
The fields, all the fields. There were a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm off camera, so you can come over if you want to.
okay.
Good. I'm a crying mess again today.
Yeah, it is. It's I think most of us are having a rough
my
time.
upstairs group with the Levins and the Treasures and Mark and Eric and David Pollard.
If I can help, I started crying. If I keep doing it, I keep talking. It's like I'm crying.
Oh, you did great. Look at Sarah over here, like.
I had to go on meds. I was start crying and cry for hours. So I call them my happy pills. They're helping a lot. So it's tough. I mean, I feel for everybody here because, you know, I've never seen a more caring group. And if you do, and you're empathetic, it's tough. It's tough to watch people suffer.
Well, and my sister works from home on the computer, and she manages to, in between her work, review all a lot of the research and the news on COVID. And so she keeps me up to date. I can't watch the news on TV anymore. Mm-hmm. But even so, when she told me what was happening down in the valley of Texas, I was so upset that that affected me for days, and the fact that it's barely touched upon in the media. Not I've heard a little bit now, but that's pretty hard.
And our prison system, the women's prison in Fort Worth, they're just lambs to the slaughter there. They're just, the COVID outbreak is so bad there, and a friend of mine is trying her best to get something done for them, but my heart breaks for them. Prisons everywhere in the United States, but at least this one is in our city. It's in Fort Worth, occurring right under our noses.
So I've gone back to work, and you know, carrying on with this discussion about the COVID right now, I'm just really discouraged. I work with a lot of people who absolutely deny the effects of this disease and the toll on life that it's taken. And I myself have a friend who died of COVID-19. And I don't know what to do about the disinformation. It's wrong. And I mean, I just feel like somehow called to bring the truth to light. I just don't know. I feel really powerless right now in this situation that so many people are in denial, and because of that, they are not taking the proper actions. And I feel like causing a lot of harm to other people. And I don't know what to do to counteract that when the truth isn't the truth anymore.
What's frustrating for me as an educator is how the lack of caring and compassion for educators, and how the lack of regard for life and safety for kids and staff. I am fortunate in that because of my high risk, I'm going to be able to work remotely from home, but my coworkers are going, even though kids are at home with remote learning, our teachers and staff are expected to show up in their classrooms and offices, and it's just so the lack of compassion and the helplessness that the anger we all feel. It's tough.
I will say that, well, a lot of it is that if they don't let kids come to school, they'll lose federal funding, which is huge.
Exactly.
And we've already got good old Betsy taking money away. And I will say that at least—
I'm going to use my phone.
Even in Keller, they're honestly doing their best to protect people. I don't know how it's going to go. They've got the option of remote and in person, which will help keep people out of the school, make it less populated, but it's going to be interesting.
It is frustrating that we wouldn't be here if people in Texas took it seriously and not made it so politicized. We might have been in a better situation.
I agree.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've occasionally I freak out about too. The whole the lack of unity from our federal government, our state government, and then the whole thing about suppressing the vote. You know, when that stuff started, so I mean, some of you I know have probably known it for years, and I first started really hearing about it or noticing what I was hearing last year, and then now there's many pieces that different pieces about it and things that are being done that it seems it's so clear that the different parts of the federal and state governments really are trying to suppress the vote, and that's very disturbing too to me.
Definitely.
And frightening almost. Yeah.
So, Kimala, you work in public health. Like, what would you recommend when you're talking to people who are in denial about COVID and the death toll? I mean, what information do you direct people to?
Well, so I don't have people asking me about it very often who don't already know. And then I have the advantage when you're a nurse, rightly or wrongly, people do seem to listen, give what you say more weight. Here's what I keep thinking, and maybe this is an answer. So I think about how I'm suffering, and my family is just suffering the isolation. My sister lives next door, and we are not around each other without masks. She doesn't come into my home really. The only time we go for dog walks is the only time that I can be around her without a mask. And I wear a mask all